Okay. Well, hello everyone. I don't have my spatula. Cannot be expected to bake without this. Well, hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. I have something a little bit unusual planned for us today. As I have now read all of Jane Austen's finished works, I thought it would be fun to rank them in the order of most enjoyable to least enjoyable, at least for me personally. And what better way to do that than with baked goods? I tend to eat a lot of that actually. So, in an homage to Jane Austen, we will be making the most English out of all baked goods. Scones. Not scones, scones. It just makes logical sense for that to be the pronunciation. Scones. So, let's start at the top and work our way downwards, as I think that would be the most interesting way to do it. Also, I won't be spoiling anything, so this video could be good for people who are interested in reading Jane Austen, but don't know exactly where to start. So, let's get into it, shall we? Ooh, that was loud. So I'm starting here with my flour, about 0.8 liters of it, and I will be adding my baking powder, like so, and about a teaspoon of salt with that. And now we shall mix this into the flour. So in my number one spot, we have the only book that I would consider to be absolute perfection, and that is Pride and Prejudice. This really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. It's just unmatched, I think, in terms of characterization and pacing. It's just wonderfully balanced. And even though there are a lot of characters, each of them have their own distinct personality, so it never gets confusing. It is about 120,000 words, so of medium length, but still quite long for a romance novel. This was the first Jane Austen book that I read, but I don't necessarily think this one is the best to start with. There is one other book that I think would be even better as a first-time Jane Austen read, but we'll get to that. Now we'll be adding the butter that I've made into nice small little pieces, as that makes it a lot easier to work into the flour to make it a crumbly texture. And I'm also using vegetable butter, which is naturally a lot more like lumpy than regular butter. There we go. I forgot to put on the oven. Goodness. My number two spot, so my second favorite, is Sense and Sensibility. This one is just an emotional roller coaster, and it goes deeper than any of the other books, in my opinion. Heartbreak is of course a big theme in this one, but also falling in love. It is about the same length as Pride and Prejudice, so again medium length, but still long for romance. I absolutely adore it. I've cried every time that I've read it, but again, I would not recommend this one as a first-time Jane Austen read. I think you need to get a feel for the style first to truly appreciate how brilliant and nuanced her writing is. And by starting with the longer ones, when you don't really know what to expect, you might actually miss out on some of the humor and characterization that is spread across all of the books. Because the way that I see it is that with most books today, the goal is the destination, just getting to the ending and having that climactic moment. Whereas with Jane Austen's works, it's really all about the journey. Just have a cozy time and don't hurry to get to the ending. The way I see it, that is the best way to enjoy her books. I think we have crumbled all of the butter now into the flour. Now we'll be digging a little bit of a hole in the middle. So now we have a little hole, and we will be adding 2 deciliters, meaning 0.2 liters of oat milk. regular milk if you drink that, and an egg. I'm not actually sure if you're supposed to whip it up a bit, but it just feels better to do it that way. Nice and goopy. And on top of all of this, about 2 tablespoons of honey. I really don't like honey. I mean, I like it in baking, but just not by itself. It's too sweet for me. Now we are good to go. Now we'll be mixing this up into a nice dough. This is always the tricky part for me because it is so easy to overwork the dough and then the scones end up pretty dense. They're still nice, of course, but I like to avoid that if I can. Let's move that onto our worktop, aka my dining table. Ooh, that was not meant to happen. I'm actually a decent baker, but this is the first time that I've ever filmed myself baking, so for that reason alone, I'm sure it will utterly fail. Now we just have to form the dough into nice little buns. 8 of them, to be exact. I did this part off camera because it took a little while. So, now that we have our 8 little buns, I usually take a knife and I make a little incision, kind of like a cross. I just think that gives it a bit of an extra flair, if you know what I mean. Yes, I heard you. It would be even nicer if I didn't have such a blunt knife. There we go. Let's put these in the oven for 15 minutes. So number 3 on my list is, after much consideration, Emma. I struggled for so long deciding between this one and Sense and Sensibility for the number 2 spot, but in the end this made more sense as Emma is more of a light-hearted comedy. It's a wonderfully fun read, but it's also quite long at 160,000 words. So that could be good to know before getting into it if you are new to Jane Austen. I would actually say that all of my top 3 would be excellent as second reads. Because there's one particular book that I think would be the best to start with, and we'll get to that in a minute. My standard tea for filming is usually Madame Grey or Earl Grey, or sometimes green, but it's usually Madame Grey. Cheers, everyone. That is nice. Oh, if only we had some pastries, then we would be officially having high tea. Now, this is where things get interesting. Number 4 on my list is Northanger Abbey. It's on point, very entertaining, simple but fun, with some very memorable characters. It's also quite short at 77,000 words, so only half the length of Emma. So a big part of that story takes place in Bath, which is an important location for the time period and is mentioned in all of her books. This is why I would say that this is the best Jane Austen novel to start with. It's a great introduction, so to speak, but again, that is just my opinion. I clearly didn't think this through. All I want to do is eat now. Now, number 5 is actually the least known of all of her finished works, and that is Lady Susan. This one is also quite short, and it is an epistolary novel, meaning that it is written in the form of letters between various characters. And it's through them that you can sort of figure out the story beats by yourself. It makes for a lot of back and forth in the timeline though, which might not be to everyone's taste. It's quite cheeky and daring for being Jane Austen, and highly entertaining. But there isn't that much depth to it, I suppose. I would definitely recommend to read this one last, as you need to already have an established appreciation for Jane Austen when getting into this. Otherwise, I don't know how enjoyable it would be. So now we have number 6 and 7 left, and here is how I rank them. 6 is Mansfield Park and 7 is Persuasion. It's not that I didn't like them or anything. I want to make it clear that all Jane Austen's books are of high quality. But it's just very subjective which ones are your favorites, and I love that. I think it's fun that we all like different things for different reasons. So, Mansfield Park is ranked this low because it simply didn't do it for me as well as the others did. And it's also quite long, 160,000 words, just like Emma. But I still enjoyed it somewhat more than I did Persuasion. My reason for putting that last is that I feel like it's unfinished. It sits at 83,000 words, so that's pretty short for being Jane Austen, and it was also published after her death. The manuscript wasn't even named by Jane herself, which is probably why the title is so different compared to the others. I know that Northanger Abbey was also published after her death, but I don't get the same unfinished feeling from that one. At least not to the same extent. I feel like the plot and characters still work with the amount of material that they have. But with Persuasion, I felt like I needed more. Just more scenes, more dialogue, things like that. It reads to me like a 4th or 5th draft when you would typically publish a 6th or 7th draft. Even though that varies from author to author, of course. Whenever I'm expressing my opinion on something and it isn't completely positive, I always feel like I'm offending people. I suppose that is unavoidable if the thing you are criticizing just so happens to be someone's favorite. It is what it is. But I do think it's okay to disagree sometimes. I just think that makes the world a more interesting place. So, that was my official ranking of Jane Austen's books. Don't forget to give me your own ratings in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion. Yes, even if it does not align with my own. Quite short and sweet this week, as I have been quite busy getting everything ready for the release of my second book, Garden of Silver. I will be talking more about this in a dedicated video, but I just wanted to mention it. Links to my book/books are always in my video descriptions, should anyone be interested in checking them out. If you enjoyed the video, then please give it a thumbs up, as that is always super helpful to me, as well as subscribe to the channel for more bookish content. Thank you all so much for watching today, and I hope to see you back next time.